Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. In today's video, I'm doing a deep dive on the band Queen. Definitely one of my favorite bands out there, and definitely I've learned to really appreciate them over doing this deep dive. And this comes to you because of a YouTuber named Lisa Loves is the name of her channel. She got second place in my Oscars prediction contest a month ago or so. And so she got to name a artist or band for me to do my next deep dive on. And she picked her favorite band, I guess, which is Queen, which was great because I was like, yeah, I love to do Queen. So thanks a lot to Lisa Loves, and definitely check her channel out as she talks a lot about movies. She does a lot of movie reviews, kind of what she's been watching, and also like reviews for movies that are currently out. Also talks a little bit about some music that's in Ireland because she's from Ireland. So she has this really great Irish accent. It's been a lot of fun getting to know her from Z Talks, and really great to do this for you, Lisa. So I hope you enjoy this and everybody else. So here's my deep dive on Queen. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well here on a Sunday night. It's Easter, so I hope everybody had a happy Easter weekend. Now tomorrow going back into the work week, but it's been great getting a day off and being Easter and all. And yeah, so yeah, I'm doing a deep dive on Queen. I mean, Queen, one of the biggest bands of all time, one of the most popular bands, I would say. Especially when I talk to people my age or younger, I always get a lot of people, Queen is really high on their list. In fact, yesterday I was on Briar's Music Showcase channel, and we did a top 10 favorite Queen songs with me, Briar, and Adam from What the Gym. The three of us did a live stream yesterday. Definitely check that out. It was a great live stream that we did. And Briar's favorite band is Queen, so we did it on his channel. And Briar's, it's like early 20s. But also another friend of mine, Jacob, I know Queen is one of his favorite bands, maybe his favorite band. And so, yeah, it's pretty popular too. Like I said, Lisa from Lisa Loves, who was the one who recommended this or chose this to be a deep dive. I think she said it was her favorite band. So yeah, it's definitely one of those bands could be people's favorites. I talk to people like my parents' age, and they don't care for Queen that much. So interesting how I guess there's some kind of divide there in the generations. I'm not sure why that is. For me, I think it's because when I first heard of Queen, it was because I saw a movie called Wayne's World with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. Of course, popular Saturday Night Live sketch turned to a comedy movie. It was one of my favorites growing up. And I think it came out around 92 or so, so I was like maybe 9 years old. I didn't see it in the theater, though. I think I saw it, I don't know if we rented it or I saw it on TV maybe a year later, whatever. And there's a famous scene where they go into the car, and Garth says, Bohemian Rhapsody, and he has like a cassette tape, and he puts it in the thing, and Wayne says, good call. And so all of a sudden they play Bohemian Rhapsody, and I never heard of Bohemian Rhapsody, never heard of Queen when I saw that, of course, when I was 9. I was like, this is a funny song. It was definitely an enjoyable part of the movie. Even though I didn't know the song at all, I was like, wow, this is kind of a fun song. Like, I figured they just wrote it for the movie. Because Bohemian Rhapsody, when they say Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm like, what's Bohemian Rhapsody? I didn't even know that was the name of the song. I was like, that was weird. Why did he say Bohemian Rhapsody? It's such a weird thing to say, and it's like, it's a weird name for a song, so I didn't put that together too much later. I'm like, oh, that's the name of the song, and I didn't realize it was already a big hit, of course, by 92. I mean, it was a huge hit back in 75 or whatever when it came out. So that was my introduction to Queen, is listening to Bohemian Rhapsody off of Wayne's World. And then when I found out that was an actual song from an actual band called Queen, I was very interested in it. I used to listen to the 60s and 70s, oldies stations. And this was definitely a song that Bohemian Rhapsody, when it came on the radio, I was just like, oh my gosh, Bohemian Rhapsody, it's the song from Wayne's World, and I was so excited to listen to it. And the more I listened to it, I was like, wow, this is a very interesting song and very unique. And so it's definitely always been, something I've always loved, Bohemian Rhapsody, of course. And then it wasn't much later, maybe until I was in my teenage years, into my high school years and on, that I kind of learned more about Queen and Freddie Mercury and Brian May, the guitar player, and all the hits they had. Of course, I started discovering, oh, I love this song. I love this song. I didn't know this was a Queen song. This was a Queen song. So I definitely started becoming a huge fan back, my high school into my 20s. I definitely was like, yeah, Queen is definitely one of my favorite bands. And though I never really delved into their albums until now, I mostly, knew their songs from hit songs on the radio. Anyway, so that's kind of what I knew from about Queen growing up and how I've kind of become a fairly big fan of theirs. Obviously, like I said, they're very popular. Especially, I think Wayne's World made them popular when that came out in '92, and then they made a movie, of course, called Bohemian Rhapsody about the band that was nominated for Best Picture and won Best Actor for Rami Malek for playing Freddie Mercury, and I think that definitely gave it another resurgence. That came out, I don't know, 2018, somewhere around there, I think. Anyway, so those are two big things about Queen. Now, I'm going to go into kind of a little bit of history of Queen here that I did some research on. And like I said, I listened to their albums. And so I kind of got a good feel of, their music and what albums I really enjoyed and all that. And and I'll go through kind of how the band kind of started and kind of their popularity and hit with some highlights from what I've researched so far. I can't say I'm a expert at Queen. Like my friend Breyer is kind of an expert. He can tell you anything, but I'll tell you what I know. But anyway, the band basically, the core of the group, of course, it's the band has only been like 4 members, and is one of those bands that some bands I cover, will have some members quit and another new member will come in, and it depends on how long the band goes. But this was a band that's basically just 4 members. Of course, Freddie Mercury, lead singer, Brian May, lead guitarist, John Deacon, bass player, and Roger Taylor is the drummer. And that's been the band, those 4 members. Kind of started out, and they basically got formed in London in 1970. Brian May and Roger Taylor were in a band called Smile that they played. And Freddie Mercury would listen to them play live and was a fan of their sound, I guess, and enjoyed them. And himself kind of, fancied himself as wanting to be a rock singer and all that. I believe they all went to college, and Roger Taylor was going to be a dentist, so that's why they called the band Smile. Brian May went on to be like an astrophysicist. I mean, he's like a really smart guy. And I think Freddie Mercury was going to college to be like what do you call it? To design clothes, like a clothes designer or something like that. Anyway, so that's how those 3 kind of got together, and Freddie Mercury became friends, and and he joined the band to be the lead singer. I guess I don't know if they needed a lead singer probably at the moment, and he said, "Hey, I can sing," and he kind of joined them, and definitely was a great, they really clicked as a group. And so then, of course, they joined the group Smile, but then Freddie Mercury wanted to change the name and came up with the name Queen, and kind of, said to the other members that he would rather change the band from Smile to Queen, which they were fine with, I guess. And so the band officially changed to Queen around this time. Then in 1971, they then added John Deacon as the bass player. So from 71, that was the core group became, or the group final became Queen there in 1971. They eventually got a record deal and came out with their first album in 1973, and they named the album Queen, just self-titled album. Didn't immediately have like great success or anything big off of it. Again, it's not an album I really liked a whole lot when I listened to it. Definitely, it's early Queen. They haven't evolved yet, I think, to what they become. Then they came out with Queen 2 as their second album, which did a lot better in the UK. Again, didn't really have any big hits off Queen 2. And again, not the most original titles, Queen and Queen 2. They didn't do a whole lot with naming the titles at that point. And again, to me, it's not one of my favorite albums of theirs. Like I said, it doesn't have any really great songs. It has, some okay ones in there. But definitely was starting to build up some momentum, or started to get kind of their name out in the UK. Still wasn't anything big in the US, I think, at this point. So it wasn't until their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, which is a great name for an album. Like, that is one of my favorite titles for an album, Sheer Heart Attack. But that definitely was starting to put their name out there more, and kind of came out with their first like real big hit, and that was Killer Queen. It definitely was like their first big radio hit that in the UK. They also had Stone Cold Crazy, which is another hit song off the album, pretty decent song. I feel like at this point they're really known for their rock songs, and when you listen to the first three albums, you're already I mean they're still pretty complicated albums, like as far as like how they layered all the music together, and there's almost this rock opera feel to them even from the beginning. There's lots of guitar solos and instrumental moments, and some songs that are pretty long. So like I always thought, oh, Bohemian Rhapsody was this kind of crazy outlier, but it's like, no, that's kind of who Queen was. They love doing these kind of out there songs that are, pretty long and wasn't exactly radio friendly anyway. So it's very interesting listening to them. But yeah, Share Our Tech definitely, I think, was a step up from the first two. But it was their fourth album that really hit it big and really made them a staple in rock music and made them legends. The fourth album is called A Night at the Opera. And you probably heard this one because this is definitely their most famous album, I would say, and the one that's talked about the most. I said it's fourth album, so it's fairly early in their discography, actually. But obviously they hit it big with the song Bohemian Rhapsody was the big single off of here. Like I said, it's the most iconic song from Queen. I think it's their biggest, most popular song ever. It's a song they're mostly known for. Huge song. The album did extremely well in the UK, and Bohemian Rhapsody was a huge hit. Number one single. I think I read it was like 9 weeks, number one. So it was number one for quite a long time in the UK. Yeah, it's one of the biggest singles of that year. That maybe the biggest single that came out that year, really. But yeah, that definitely made it big for Queen, and definitely made them one of the hottest acts out there. And they're touring and started making a lot of money through that. And every album after this did really, really well, I'd say. So I think a lot to that to Night of the Opera. And Night of the Opera, if you ever heard that name, it's also the name of a famous Marx Brothers movie back in the day. And that's where they got the name from. So I don't know if they were Marx Brothers fans or how they kind of stole that name from from their movie, but that's a very popular movie, actually, a very popular comedy of, I don't know, the 1930s maybe. They also had You're My Best Friend was also a hit off that album, one of the best pop songs. And I feel like, what I feel like when listening to it, like I said, the first three albums felt like just more like these kind of hard rock, almost rock opera type songs. I feel like when you get to Night at the Opera on, you get a lot of different styles in there, which I didn't think about Queen. I think Queen is just this really good hard rock band. But like I said, You're My Best Friend, one of my favorite songs, is the best pop song I think they ever came up with. It has such a great pop sound to it. They also have some Love of My Life, which is this really beautiful piano ballad. So, and about every album, you'll hear a couple of piano ballads in there, which you're like, man, Freddie Mercury, he can kill it when he's doing the piano ballads, which is like, wow, it's so beautiful. And then he hits you with a really cool rock song, like Killer Queen or whatever, and some others coming up. That it's like, man, he has an amazing rock voice, but he can also do pop and ballads, and it just definitely was one of those bands where every album you get so many different styles, and that's why they're so great, I think, and why I appreciate them more now, even listen to the albums. But so that was the fourth album. Their fifth album was called A Day at the Races, which is a name of another Marx Brothers movie. So it's the only two that are Marx Brothers movies. So I don't know, they went on this weird naming albums off of Marx Brothers movies. They didn't go with that trend or whatever of that, but yeah. So Day at the Races is their next album. The biggest hit off there is Somebody to Love, which is another favorite song of mine, and a really great album as well. Their sixth album was called News of the World. It has a really crazy, one of the craziest album covers, which is like this, it looks like this big robot, and he has people in his hands, and there's blood everywhere. I don't know, so it's a very weird but iconic kind of album cover, and so it's one I've seen a lot where I'm like, okay, I know that's a Queen album because of that cover, but now I know, oh yeah, that's News of the World. That's the name of the album. And News of the World is big because the very first two songs are some of the biggest, or the biggest two, like, sports arena songs. I guess you call them sport rock or whatever, which is "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions." It's the very first two songs off the album, which are two huge hits that they came up with, and two songs I absolutely love. I always say "We Will Rock You" is the best song to play before you win a championship. "We Are the Champions" is the best song to sing after you win a championship, especially "We Are the Champions." That's so iconic too. Anytime someone wins a championship, they always play "We Are the Champions." I mean, it is the greatest song to sing along to after winning. So those are two pretty huge ones off of that. News World, another really, really great album overall. Their eighth album is Jazz, and it had two pretty big hits off of there, Fat Bomb Girls and Don't Stop Me Now. Two songs, really great. I love both of them. Fat Bomb Girls, it's kind of a funny song and such a funny named song, but really solid rock song with some great catchy chorus vocals anyways. And to say about Queen, is interesting about them is that Freddie Mercury was obviously the front man. He was very showy. He wore kind of crazy costumes. When he first kind of came out, he had kind of this long hair and he was clean shaven, but he'd wear these really, dazzling outfits and very interesting. Of course, like I said, he was kind of a clothing designer, so I don't know if that played part in his costuming. He definitely loved to be in some kind of interesting costume. It definitely was one of the trademarks of the band is the way he looked and the way he was on stage. He just totally commanded the stage and everything. And I guess I was going to say with that, the iconicness of, sorry, I lost my train of thought, of Queen is, the way they looked on stage. And Brian May, obviously amazing guitar player, and he had such an interesting sound to his guitar, which he made his own guitar, which is crazy. Who makes their own guitar? And then Breyer told me the other day, John Deacon made their amps. I don't know. So the fact that he made his own guitar and they made their own amps. Also, Brian May, he didn't use a pick on his guitar. He used a coin that they don't make anymore. He has a special coin from Britain that I guess they only make in Britain that he used as a pick, which I never heard of using a coin as a pick. That's an interesting idea, but that's why he comes up with some really interesting tones to his guitar. But like I said, definitely they're just an iconic band, just not to listen to, but to watch on stage. And of course, they were really big and their music videos did very well on MTV as well at the time. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, so then around this time, he changed his look from the long hair, clean shaven, to a short haircut and a mustache. And that kind of became his iconic look at kind of around this point, I think, or maybe before this point. But it's interesting how he kind of changed his look at this moment. Definitely had the same great sound, though. Then his ninth album, Jazz was the last album of the 70s, came out in 78. So like I said, they're all huge hits. And kind of what you think about, I think, Queen are these 70s songs. But also they hit pretty good in the 80s, starting with The Game, which came out, I think, around 1980. Somewhere around that point. I forget, maybe 82. It was around there. They had their best single, actually, of all time was Another One Bites the Dust. It was their biggest selling single. Interesting enough, came with the album, which is kind of understanding. It's definitely one of the most iconic songs that I've heard growing up on the radio. It's in TV, it's in movies, it's on commercials. It has the best bass line of all time. The dun 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 dun. Yeah, so it's Weird Al did a song called Another One Rides the Bus off of that in one of his early hits. Which I covered Weird Al in my last deep dive, in fact. But yeah, so that was big. The Game did also very well. Also, it's notable to say in 1981, they came out with a compilation album called Queen's Biggest Hits, or Queen's Greatest Hits, and it was UK's best-selling album. Best-selling. It oversold everything else. I mean, it is absolutely huge compilation album. The best-selling compilation album probably of all time, maybe, except for maybe the Eagles. I know had a big one as well. But yeah, just say that's how popular they were up to this point in 1981. And it's considered one of the greatest bands because everybody loved their music and was buying the greatest hits out like crazy. Anyway, so I thought that was interesting when I did that research. Also, coming in the 80s, the most significant moment in concert-wise for the Queen, and one of the biggest moments in rock history, the biggest moment for them was doing the Live Aid concert in 1985. Anytime you see Live Aid concert, it's always about Queen. I don't see a lot of other bands. I know there's other bands that did it, but Queen was the most popular band, or that was their biggest moment, where Freddie Mercury is this huge crowd, and it's just such a fun to watch. Freddie Mercury just totally, owning the stage, totally has the crowd in his hand. It comes out, does that, he goes, da-da-day-o, da-da-day-o. He's just doing nonsense words, and the crowd is singing it back to him because they love him so much, and he's so popular, and he's so great on stage. And of course, he sings Bohemian Rhapsody, which was, a humongous hit. I always feel like when he does Radio Gaga, that's always a highlight of that whole concert. Him having that half mic, singing it, and he's like pumping his fist. All we sing is Radio Gaga, and the whole crowd's going crazy and singing along. It's definitely one of the greatest moments in, like, any kind of live performance on television anyway. So I definitely had to talk about that, and it's definitely a fun thing. Definitely check on YouTube. It's the very end of the movie Bohemian Rhapsody. It's the very end part. They do the whole set in that movie, which is a really cool part of that movie. And yeah, so definitely something to check out if you haven't. Queen's last performance was in 1986. This is because in 1987, Freddie Mercury would be diagnosed with AIDS. As we know, Freddie Mercury was gay or bisexual, though he had, of course, keep in the closet at that moment. Gay people didn't come out, at least gay celebrities didn't come out as much as they do today. And so that's still something that, that kind of kept close, though. I don't know. I'm sure people knew he was gay. I don't know. I wasn't around at that time. Or I was just a little kid at the time, so I don't know. But, of course, something that happens in the gay community a lot of times is getting diagnosed with AIDS, and that happened to Freddie Mercury. Unfortunately, cut his life very short. Innuendo was the very last album that Freddie Mercury was alive for, basically, while they recorded it. It came out in 1991, and Freddie Mercury died later that year in 1991. So that was the end of that. The band kind of took some time off, of course, after Freddie Mercury's death. Obviously, it's hard to go on without Freddie Mercury. He's such a huge part of the band. It's like you can't have Queen without Freddie Mercury, it feels like. But there were some songs that Freddie Mercury sang on and recorded a little bit of that the other band members came back in 93 and got in the studio and took some of the Freddie Mercury songs that they had and was able to form an album around it called Made in Heaven. And so that came out in 1995. So even though Mercury died in 91, they actually came out with an album in 95. And that's the very official last album. Then in 97, John Deacon basically retired from music and has done nothing with Queen after 97, I guess. He decided just to retire from music altogether. So they kind of took time off, and then in 2004, Brian May and Roger Taylor came back together to try to form a band to do, go around and sing Queen's, tour and do Queen's, songs, which are, still huge today. And so they got a new bass player, and they had a lead singer, which is always hard. How do you, get someone after Freddie Mercury? But they had a guy named, I think, Paul Rogers first, who was a lead singer from Bad Company. And then recently they have Adam Lambert is the current lead singer that they use, and they still do touring today anyways, and still do very well, of course. So the band is still together in memory, or still together, even though not all the band members are here, they're still somewhat together doing songs, which is great. But overall, they sold between 250 to 300 million records, one of the greatest selling bands of all time. I think someone said, or I read something about being like the 87th greatest band of all time, and somewhere it said like they're the 7th most records sold or something like that. So they're pretty high on how many records they've sold and all that. I didn't see any Grammy awards they won, so I was kind of surprised. I was looking at Grammy award wins, and I didn't see anything there. So I don't know if they won a lot of awards as far as that's concerned. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003, so about 20 years ago. They're in the Hall of Fame. Very deserving, of course. Overall, 15 albums from 1970 to 1995. Most of them are all top 5 hits. From like the Sheer Heart Attack to all the way to Made in Heaven. They're all top 5. Last 4 or so were number 1 hits. They peaked at number 1 in the charts. A lot of number 1 albums. They all did very, very well. Like I said, Night at the Opera is probably considered the greatest album most people would say. I think that's definitely one you need to listen to. In my opinion, Night of the Opera to Jazz, those four albums are like my favorite. I highly recommend those four. The Game is good too, and The Works later on in the 80s is decent. But those four are just absolutely amazing albums. Some of the best albums I've heard. And like I said, listening to all these albums made me appreciate. I always was a fan of Queen. Now I'm like a huge fan of Queen, and they're definitely like a top 5 favorite band of all time after listening to these albums. So fun to listen to, and not in such their big hits, but even some of the songs I've never heard of. They have some good hidden gems there as well. So I definitely check out Night of the Opera, Day of the Races, News of the World, and Jazz. I think are just really, really top albums. In fact, I'd say Jazz is my favorite album actually out of everything I heard. Right now, I put Jazz number 1, A Day at the Races number 2, and A Night at the Opera number 3. So those are my three favorite albums. Though, like I said, there's 5 or 6 really, really top good albums here that that I would recommend listening to. And some say they're not good albums, they're just a good singles band, but I disagree. I think they have some good albums as well, and they're worth listening to. And then someday I'd love to get these on vinyl or whatever. So, but yeah, so that's my deep dive on Queen. Hope you enjoyed that. Maybe you learned something from what I said. And I'd love to read your comments. What do you think about Queen and some of your favorite Queen songs or albums? I'd love to read. And just thank you a lot to Lisa, and give a lot of love to Lisa Love's YouTube channel. Definitely check her out. And I appreciate you, Lisa, for giving me this band to do the deep dive on. And yeah, so thank you to everybody watching the video. Thank you for liking it. And thank you to all the subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all. Hope you have a good day.